Oh, there we go. StreamYard done upgraded on me. Peace, everybody. Whoever is going to tap into this, either while it's going on or afterwards. Jalen Thorne here. Share with y'all some biblical wisdom that God has put on me. I think I haven't done many Bible study lessons like this in a while. It's been about a year now, I think, and it's actually because I've been going through different seasons. I went through about 3 or 4 different seasons, actually 3 different seasons, since my last video, or yeah, since the last video I made, and God has been doing the big one. Okay, He been doing the big one. So a lot of the things that I'm gonna be telling y'all about, and showing y'all when it comes to the scriptures, the things that I've been learning through physical, practical experiences, and they're a lot more detailed, deeper, and also simple to understand at the same time. Um, so, without further ado, we'll get straight into it. The title of the lesson is "Does God Make Us Save Ourselves?" Or "Can you save yourself?" if you will. Okay, and before I get to reading anything, for those who do not know, I've been saying this since the last videos that I first made. I read only out of the 1560 edition of the Geneva Bible. I do not read the King James. I don't read anything newer than the year of 1560 of the Geneva Bible. I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to find something that came out before Geneva at some point in time as well. But if you don't know, it's better to start here with this. It's a Hendrickson edition. This is the closest we'll get so far to the original biblical truth and real history, right? We don't do the modern stuff. I won't get into the whole thing, but basically there's a lot of stuff that's been taken out, mistranslated, swapped verses that were taken out, whole bunch of stuff taken out of context, verses that are changed, all that good stuff. So everything that I read, show y'all, verses that I talk about and point out, if you're reading it in the newer version, it's not going to hit the same or hold the same weight as it would if you were reading it in 1560 Hendrickson published Geneva Bible. Okay. So, can you save yourself? Does God make us have to save ourselves? So, the reason why we're doing this lesson is because I hit a season in my life where um, when I first got entered into the wilderness with God, it was back in 2022. We're all the way in 2026 now, almost 2027. So I've been in the wilderness now for 4 years, and I finally have came out of it, or coming out of it. That 4 years basically is like it's like an amplified version of the 40 years that the Israelites went through the wilderness. So instead of him giving me a real 40, I'm only doing 4, but it feels like 40 from all that I've been through. So through the process, when I first got started in the walk as a baby, just like everybody else, you start as a baby in his eyes. So what happens is that you don't really understand different things about yourself. You don't know the type of power that you have. You don't know what you carry. You don't know what God's really capable of, what his son's capable of, right? You don't know really what's going on in life. And so therefore, when you find yourself in situations or whatever's going on, God actually does majority of the work for you as a parent would a child. See, I have a son. My son, he's still a little bitty baby. He isn't 3 years old yet. So I do a lot of things for him still. He's not really ready to pull his own weight in some things, and some things he's currently getting there. So in Deuteronomy, matter of fact, we'll get to it just to kind of give you the explanation. Let me give you the method to the madness before I really explain or finish explaining. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. We're going to read verse 5. Yeah, just verse 5. Okay. So, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 5. It says, "Know therefore in thine heart that as a man nurtureth his son," so as a father and a child, or a parent and child, "so the Lord thy God nurtureth thee." So I read this now and I have a different perspective and understanding of this than I did when I first read it a few years ago. Okay. When I first read it a few years ago, I just understood like, okay, well, He'll nurture you. He'll raise you like a child would. But I didn't really understand it for real until I had my own son, and my son's almost 3 now. So going through that process of raising a child, you begin to see this in a whole different light. Okay. And so during my wilderness journey, for about 3 years, about 3 years, I was a baby. I was still on milk. Paul talked about how, there's some people on milk and there's some people that's on meat. Okay. So you don't control when you graduate. But for the first 3 years, I was on milk. I didn't understand a lot of stuff. I didn't really know how God operated. I didn't even know what I was capable of even though he made me in his image to be like his son and to be like him. Okay. So why is that important? The reason why it's important is that the topic is, can you save yourself? Does God put you in situations where you have to save yourself instead of him jumping in and pulling all the strings and doing everything for you? The short answer is yes. He does get to a point where you have to save yourself from certain situations. Okay. So to further get deep into it, let's start reading some scripts to give y'all some more context. So we're gonna go to the Apocrypha. Okay, we're gonna read in the Apocrypha first, and then I'll finish my train of thought before we start reading. It's gonna go to First Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 19. First Maccabees, chapter 3, and verse 19. Okay, now before we read First Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 19, where I was going with the whole parent-child relationship is that early on in my seasons, I started as a baby. I'm at a point now where he has graduated me and showed me that I am mature enough now to start pulling my own weight. Okay, there's a point in time and there's a season where God keeps the training wheels on you, and then there's going to come a season where he takes the training wheels off of you, and now you got to start showing him the things that he taught you in real time. So he shows you different things, teaches you different things, give you different spiritual understanding and downloads, puts you in situations during certain seasons where you practically live these things out and put them into practice to show that you're actually grasping the concept and you're learning. And then you get to the season where you pull the training wheels off and life begins to happen, right? Or he gives you a vision and an end goal of what he wants you to do, but now he puts the ball in your court and you have to start deciding how you're going to get to it. Okay. And understanding the first 3 lessons that I put on my YouTube channel and understanding this lesson about why God puts us in a situation where we have to save ourselves, then you'll begin to understand what it really means to be made in God's image, to utilize and walk in the divine power he gave us, and to actually subdue the earth, have dominion, right? Be fruitful and multiply the way that he told us in the very first commandment. Okay? This is the original design of life, which is Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. So without further ado, First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 19. It says, "For the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of the hosts, but the strength cometh from heaven." The victory of any battle, any success that you obtain in life, it is not because of your own ability. It is not because of your own wisdom. It is not because of your own power. It is because it came from God himself, through his son, through you. Any form of power that we have, any form of wisdom, ability, skill, it came from the one and only Heavenly Father, the Creator, who gave you that ability when he initially designed you and created you to begin with. So there is no such thing as, all that self-made stuff. People be like, I'm self-made. Ain't nobody self-made. Because guess what? You wouldn't even be able to do none of the stuff. You wouldn't even be able to do a fraction of the stuff unless God gave you the ability to even have common sense, to understand, to use a brain, to have a brain, right? You wouldn't even be able to do half of those things. So I'll read it again, then we'll go to the next verse. First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 19. It says, "For the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of the hosts, but the strength cometh from heaven. Why is that important? Because the topic is, can you save yourself? Before you can really understand the ability to take the training wheels off and start steering the ship with God's help as his partner, you have to first understand where your ability to do these things comes from in the first place. So we just read about how it comes from God. It doesn't come from anywhere else but God himself. Now let's go to another verse that further explains and reiterates the point that everything comes from God. I have to drill this in your head first, because without this, then you start to go off and start dabbling in things that you shouldn't dabble into, and you start to try to utilize this gift that we were given when he first created us unauthorized. And when you do it unauthorized, you end up like Moses, and then you get kept out of the promised land because you don't know what you're doing or you overstepping. So let's go to Ecclesiasticus. This is in the Apocrypha as well. Ecclesiasticus chapter 11, verse 14 and verse 15. Ecclesiasticus chapter 11, verse 14 and verse 15. Okay, here we go. It's one of my favorite sets of verses that I used to read a lot when I first got into this relationship that I've been building with God. Okay. Verse 14 says, prosperity and adversity, life and death, poverty and riches come of the Lord. So whether you are prosperous or whether you go through adversity, whether you have life in your body or whether you die, whether you are poor or whether you are rich, it all comes from God. There is nothing in this life that exists without God's will or say so. He has to give the green light. The devil can't even bless people. You know how the devil be out here buying people's souls, supposedly? People be selling their soul and stuff like that. The devil wouldn't even be able to give blessing unless God gave the devil the ability to bless people on earth, right? And we won't even get into that. I'll save that for a different lesson. But verse 14 and 15 together. Prosperity and adversity, life and death, poverty and riches come of the Lord. Wisdom and knowledge and understanding of the law are of the Lord. Love and good works come from him. So the whole premise of this is that everything revolves around the one and only source. God is the plug and the wall socket and the source of energy that powers the socket. He's all of that. Okay. And we can't do nothing or receive nothing or gain nothing without going through him. Right? Let's further get into it. I'm going to keep reiterating different verses, different Bible verses that show us where all of this divine power comes from and where all the provisions and source comes from before I get into the Bible verses that explain how we are eventually getting to a point where he's expecting us to use power that he put inside of us when he created us in the very beginning anyway. Okay, so don't overlook the mundane. So let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2. The book of 1 Samuel chapter 2. We're going to read verse 6 through 9. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 6 through 9. It says, the Lord killeth and maketh alive, bringeth down to the grave and raiseth up. The Lord maketh poor and maketh rich, bringeth low and exalteth. He riseth up the poor, or he raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the seat of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them. He will keep the feet of his saints, and the wicked shall keep silence in darkness. For in his own might, so in our own might, shall no man be strong. So if you took away God's presence and his essence from every human being, there is absolutely no power to do anything. I wouldn't even have the power to pick up this cup because I would be so weak. It's that deep because everything that God touches and creates has life in it and has power inside of it. From the smallest level of strength to the most powerful level of divine power, which is spiritual, that comes through your DNA. Okay? That's how deep and how far the spectrum goes when it comes to this. So let's read another one. And I don't believe in doing, prolonged, super long biblical lessons if I don't have to. I'm going to get to the point. I'm going to give you context, and I'm going to let you sit with the thing that we're talking about. I cannot teach you something. I can only show you things. Every person is self-taught with God. To teach somebody something means that I can physically implant my understanding in your brain, and we're not able to do that. So all I can do is show you these things, these Bible verses, and if you really want to know and gain understanding on it, then you will take them and go watch the video and study them for yourself, and then talk to God and let him open your understanding more in his divine timing when he chooses to. That's the way it comes and goes when it comes to understanding biblical scriptures and real divine understanding. Any real mentor or educator understands that principle. Okay. So let's read Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. We're going to get another example here of how everything comes from God. Everything. Then we're going to get deep into divine power and how God puts you in situations to save yourself. And then I'm going to give y'all a real practical example or explanation of some examples of what God did to me in my real life, so you can see how this really works, right? You get to a point in your relationship with God where you start to have real-time dialogue with him every single day. I'm at the point now where I got a relationship with him just like Abraham did. Like, I'm the friend of God, I'm his son, and he is also my teacher all at the same time, right? Every single day he leads me and directs me, but we're walking together, right? We're walking together. I think I talked to my cousin the other day. It took me a while to understand this principle, but I was speaking to my cousin about like 2 days ago on the phone, right? And my cousin was somebody that God put into my life when I was a little bitty child, who did my first Bible study with me, all of that stuff when I was a little bitty kid. Told me about heaven and hell, all of that stuff. And I was always sensitive to God. But he said the other day something that I relate to because I feel the same way. He said, the life that he prefers is a life where God gives us a template that shows you how to live, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, all that stuff. So he give you a whole template that says, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is when you're going to do it. This is where you're going to be. This is how you're going to do it. It would make life a whole lot easier, right? To please God. But what you find out is that that's not how life was intended to be. That's what Christ came and showed us about, right? That's not how life was made to be. It wasn't made to be a template, right? If it was made to be a template, he wouldn't tell us to ask for whatever you want, right? Pray for whatever you pray for, whatever you desire, and he'll give it to you. He don't tell you to go out and labor and do certain things just so you can follow the line that he set. You know what I mean? He'll give you the destination to whatever it is he has planned for your life and the purpose he has for you, but how you get there, he's giving us that form of free will and free choice, right? So Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, to further explain, says, but remember the Lord thy God, for it is he which giveth thee power to get substance, to establish his covenant, which he sware unto thy fathers, as appeareth this day. Now, when you look into the etymology of the word power, you find out power actually means multiple different things. Just like in the English language, one word can have multiple meanings to it. It's the same thing with Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic. So the Hebrew word for power, I'm actually going to pull it up on my phone so I can give you some accurate information here. Hold on. Let me pull it up. Deuteronomy 8 and 18. The Hebrew word for power in this specific context is koach or koah. Okay, it is H3581. That's the Strong's. If we use the Strong's Concordance only and we're not getting the lexicon and stuff like that, then that's what this is. So the word koah. The word power in this case means strength, might. Let me see. Ability. I think, what was it? Where did it go? Yep. Human strength, might, ability, efficiency, strength of angels, power of God, produce, right? So there's multiple meanings to it. Whole point is that without God, we wouldn't have any know-how, any skill, any power, any substance. We wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for him. So the sooner you understand that, the sooner you can get to really walking into divine purpose and divine authoritative power. And when you do that, that's when he becomes really pleased, because now you're graduating from a baby to a mature adult in his eyes, somebody he can actually really work with. So let's get deep into it. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, so we can get into the idea of what I mean when I say that does God make you have to save yourself at one point? Genesis chapter 1. Verse 26 and 27. Okay. It says, furthermore, God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the heaven, and over the beasts, and over all the earth, and over everything that creepeth and moveth on the earth. Thus God created the man in his image, man, the actual male and humankind. In the image of God created he him. He created them male and female. So we were made in his image, in his likeness. Okay? That means we're made compatible to him. We are not God, but we are gods, if you want to take it there. Okay? The scriptures even says that. So let's go read about what Christ was teaching. Let's read about what Christ was teaching and why it's important to know what it means to really be made in God's image. What do you do with this? Why does it matter that you were made in this? Why would he put that in there if it had no substance, right? So let's go to, or matter of fact, before we even get to that, I'm gonna use some context that I put in here. It's a little note that I had. So we as human beings made in God's image, we are just like fields. Okay, fields that you go plant seeds in and stuff, and you grow food and all of that. We're just like fields in his eyes. Okay, the ideas that he gives to us is him planting seeds. Okay, and for him to plant a seed inside of our minds means that we have the power, the ability, the efficiency, the skill, the know-how, the ability to bring it to fruition. Okay, we have the power within us to create and to shift things, which is where biblical manifestation comes from, right? We have these actual abilities to do so. This is what he meant in Deuteronomy chapter 8 when he said he gave you the power to get substance. This is what he meant when he said he made us in his image. We have power to do things. So let's go to Matthew chapter 13 and verse 58. Matthew 13 and 58. Here we go. Matthew 13 and 58. It says, and he did not many great works there for their unbelief's sake. So this is talking about Christ. So when Christ came and did his ministry and he was out, doing his works and everything, converting people, saving people, healing people, teaching or educating, right? There were certain areas that he went into where which he dwells inside of us through our DNA, right? But he was physical in the physical realm at this point in time. There were certain areas he could not do divine works in because people were non-believing of that of the fact that we have the ability to receive divine things, see divine things, can do divine things. Okay, this is the importance of faith or strong belief, strong conviction, real understanding. Not hearing with this. Faith comes with hearing and hearing of the word of God, but it's not hearing with your ears, it's hearing with your heart. You hear with this. Okay. If you do not believe that we have the ability to save ourselves, if you do not believe we have the ability to do divine things, if you don't even believe that God gave you the ability to actually manifest using the power of your tongue mixed with faith and work, if you don't even believe God exists, it says here, Christ was not able to do anything because they weren't believing. They were non-believers. Okay? They were non-believers. One of the worst things you can do is go through a situation that God allows you to go through and have a negative perspective about it, bro. I'm gonna tell you some practical stuff before we even get to any more verses. I'm gonna give you some practical things about what happened in my life, so y'all can really piece it together. Okay, one of the worst things that you could ever do in any situation you find yourself in is to look at it from a negative angle and speak death, speak all these negative things, complaints, all of that stuff. And so the season I was in my life and where I'm at currently right now, for the first, let me see, when I left Texas, and I'll give y'all the whole testimony on like a whole separate video because it's super, super long. But when I left Texas after that season, when God was teaching me many different things, I went from the first season, which was at my mom's house for a year. I went to an apartment after that, which was the second season. I went to an apartment after that, which was the third season. And then now I'm in a different environment, which is the fourth season, which is my freedom season. Okay. And so I bring that up because I had to learn how to not be a non believing person. I had to learn how to go through different situations and not speak death or negative things over my life. Okay, I had to learn how to not do this, and it took me a while to get there. And what I learned in these different seasons, like in the first two seasons, I learned that we had divine power. I learned that our DNA actually has real supernatural power if you know how to activate it. The things that Christ was talking about and educating us on, only those who had the new wineskins could actually receive it, right? If you actually have a childlike spirit, being born again like a child, you're able to receive what he was actually trying to say and what he was showing. So I learned in the first two seasons we had real divine power. Then the following season, the third season, God put me in a situation where I had to go through a financial crisis without complaining, and I had to put into actual practice the things that he taught me in the first two seasons. Okay, so the things that I learned from meditation to speaking life, using the power of my tongue, I learned how to pray properly, right? I learned how to speak with authority and not be passive when I pray, right? These different things that I learned, God put me in a different season, right? As a big boy. And I had to put it into practice to learn how it really worked. And when I saw that it really worked, then he moved me to a different season where I'm currently at, where he's no longer holding my hand, do different things. He's partnering with me every single day. He's maneuvering things every day for me, right? But he's not holding my hand doing everything like when I was a little baby in his eyes. Now he lets life unfold with the same scenarios, expecting for me to put into practice what I learned without complaint. And then he's giving me different things that he's told me to do, and how I get there is going to be based on the abilities that he's given me that I have to use and partner with him in the process. Okay. And so I say that example for y'all so you can see that there was a point in time where he was the one delivering me through these different situations. But then I had 2 seasons, the one before where I'm at and the one where I'm at now, where he wasn't delivering me, like just doing all the work for me. He put me in real situations that had real practical consequences if I did not display what he taught me. These consequences were attached to him. And so he was saying, okay, instead of me coming and saving you, right, and doing everything for you, I want you to display what I showed you and save yourself with my help. I've already set the stage for you. I've given you the information, the wisdom, the knowledge, the know-how. Show me that you know how to get yourself through these different situations based on what I taught you. That was what happens. Okay. So, like I said, the title is Can You Save Yourself? Does God put you in situations where you got to save yourself? Yes, he does. And it's because he wants to see that you are mature now. Why does it matter for you to even be mature? Why would he even do that? Because in order for him to bring the kingdom, when his son returns and he brings the real kingdom, right? First, he has to have people who he will have in the kingdom, whoever that may be, right? They have to be basically prepared. They have to be molded, they have to be changed and basically reformed like a caterpillar to a butterfly to even enter in. He's not just going to let anybody into the kingdom. He's only going to let people who actually are trained mentally, physically, spiritually inside of it. You have to know these principles because every day in life we're in a spiritual warfare. And when you go through war, you have to know how to fight. It's the devil's side versus God's side. You got the devil's children who actually know a lot more biblical wisdom than most of God's children because most of God's children are too skeptical to actually really, really study Christ and what Christ was saying. But when you're in a war, you clash, okay? You clash, you got to fight. So if you don't know what spiritual war is and you don't know that you have divine power, you don't know that you have the capabilities and that you're actually stronger than anything the devil and his children can possibly do, then when the devil's children out here trying to cast witchcraft on you, they out here trying to ruin your life, they out here trying to do all this stuff, you as God's child don't even realize that you have a stronger source of power, which is the one who created all of this stuff that the devil and his children actually using, right? And then now your life is ruined because you didn't even know how to combat that stuff. This is why it's important for us to mature. This is why God actually led me to do the videos that I've done so far, including this one in the order that he's been doing. If you actually go back and watch the videos on my channel from beginning to end, you will actually see it's kind of like in a chronological order that will teach you different things about the divine power that we have. I'm strongly convinced, and if y'all can prove me wrong, you know what I mean. You can drop it in the comments or whatever. If you can prove me wrong, then do it. You know what I'm saying. That's cool. But I'm strongly convinced that people who do not know how to use their divine power and that are not operating in it are not gonna be chosen to be in the kingdom when it finally comes. As far as men and women go, because of what I just explained to you about the whole warfare. Devil side versus God side. Like you have to really study the word to understand why it even matters and why it's important in the first place. Okay, so to get back on topic because we're almost done, and then I'll close out. Can you save yourself? Christ could not do works. He could not do divine works in an area where people had no belief and had no real faith. Whatever you're going through in your life, do not expect a miracle if you are non-believing that God is even able to do divine things. And what I mean when I say divine, I ain't talking about that religious stuff you hear in church. I'm not talking about none of that. I'm talking about real things that look make-believe. The stuff that you see in the movies. I'm talking about when you read in Exodus how Moses saw a burning bush, but the bush was on fire and it didn't disintegrate. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like real things. Like in my journey, in my walk, I have seen things that if I try to explain it to y'all, if you really don't understand this stuff is real, you gonna think I'm schizophrenic or think I'm crazy. I have seen real things in my wilderness journey. God has shown me real things, including Christ himself coming to me and walking with me in one of my dreams. I seen Christ when I was asleep one night. Saw exactly what it looked like. He talked to me, walked with me, showed me something that was going to happen in my life 3 years later. 3 years later, it actually happened in my life, and that's when I knew it was really him. But then I've also seen things in real time, like how I'm a real person right now. I'm wide awake. I've seen things in real time as well too. But because I believe that this stuff was real to begin with, that's the only reason why I saw it. That's the only reason why he showed it to me. Otherwise, if I was non-believing, guess what? Christ wouldn't have did nothing. Christ wouldn't have revealed himself to me. God wouldn't have shown me certain things because guess what? A non-believing heart ain't gonna actually receive it anyway in the first place. So let's read one more verse, and then I'll get ready to close it out. Let's go to Matthew chapter 17. Matthew chapter 17. And we're gonna read verse 19 through 20. Matthew 17, verse 19 through 20, and then I will get ready to close it out. Matthew 17. There we go. Cool. This is one of the biggest lessons I learned before I really was able to start biblically manifesting God, before God put me in certain tests and situations where I've had to manifest things into reality. Even the situation I'm in right now, I have to manifest a certain outcome this week from Sunday through Thursday. I got 5 days to do it. And I'm going to do it. It's cakewalk, you know what I mean? Because me and God, we locked in like that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm only able to do it because he put me through all these different trainings in real life with real consequences. He broke me down like a butterfly or like a caterpillar. Okay? So, Matthew chapter 17, verse 19 through 20. It says, Then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, Why could not we cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, Because of your unbelief. For verily, verily means truly, and Christ ain't never told a lie. So this must be true if he don't never lie, right? He said, For verily or truly I say unto you, if ye have faith as much as is a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, Remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible or impossible unto you. Let's explain what faith really is for a second, because I'm going to explain what he meant when he said, if you got faith the size of a mustard seed. When you go from a baby to mature in the spirit, faith, which is what I had at the very beginning, like baby level faith at the very beginning of my walk, is me simply believing that something is possible. I don't know if he will do it for me, but I know God can do it. That's basically what that is. Like, it's like shaky belief. You know what I mean? But when you graduate, which is where I'm at now, you shift from believing to now you know. Like you know for a certainty. Like, it's not no, I believe he can do it, but is he? Nah, I know. I guarantee know. You go from believing to knowing. That's what real faith is. So when Christ was talking about this type of faith right here that moves mountains, he's talking about if you got the smallest size of faith where you know, not I believe, you gotta know. That's what Christ had. He had that I know type of faith. When you got that, that's what moves mountains. Matter of fact, to give you some more context, go to Mark chapter 11. This is the same verse, just explained in a different way. Okay, Mark chapter 11, verse 23. Yeah. The context of Mark chapter 11, verse 23 is when he went to go curse the fig tree. So he spoke a curse to the fig tree in verse 14, but then they didn't see the fig tree actually wither until the next day, like 24 hours went by. Most people don't even got that level of faith to even see the fruit happen later on, because not all the time is it going to happen the same day. Sometimes it does, depending on it. It depends on you and how you and God are, right? But that's the context. Verse 23 says, For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Take thyself away, and cast thyself into the sea. This is the key. And shall not waver in his heart, but shall believe or know. Switch the word believe for know, but shall know that those things which he saith shall come to pass. Whatsoever he saith shall be done to him. He said you can't waver. You can't be doubtful or double-minded. You see, wavering comes from regular baby level faith. It comes from I believe, but is he? I believe, but you can't say I believe, but you gotta have that I know. I know this mountain's gonna move. It ain't got a choice. It don't got a choice but to move because I know I was made in his image. God put me through real situations and made me put into practice real biblical manifestation to meet necessary requirements of what I needed. So I've seen it in real time. I have to do it every day anyway. He's making me do it. So I know. I'm not simply believing no more. I know at this point. When you get to that point, there ain't nothing. I mean, and I'll say this with some passion. There is nothing that you can't do. There is nothing that you can think of that will overcome you, bro. I'm not making this up. When I finally tell y'all the testimony, like when I make a separate video to finally share my whole testimony, God willing, he give me the words to really explain it in a way it's so detailed that y'all really grasp it. Because I'm telling you what I know, not what I think. God will put you in situations in your life after you hit certain milestones in the spirit when he's educating you and showing you things and teaching you things about yourself, about life, and about him and his son. Real relationship, not that religious stuff, real relationship. He will put you in situations where now the training wheel's gonna come off and you gotta put it into practice. Because now you know how to use it. You're a big boy, you're a big girl now. So now you gotta put it into practice and walk in your divine purpose and your divine power, or else we aren't useful in his eyes. How he gonna possibly be able to use somebody who's too shaky or too timid to even use what we were given? Why would he use them in a war? You ever heard that saying? It says, better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You need bro, war, all about war. God is a man of war. You can't be soft when it comes to battles. You can't be soft when it comes to the devil. You can't be soft when it comes to his children. I went through a big portion of my life fighting witchcraft, bro. My family was a very cursed family as I was growing up. And I didn't break the ties that stuff put on my life until, when was it? This was back in like 2025 when I had my first apartment. The second season after my mom's house. Or I'm sorry, the first season after my mom's house. That's when I had to go on my first ever 3-day dry fast, like you read about in the scriptures, so I can break off certain strongholds, right? And that's another thing about fasting too when it comes to divine power, right? Before he puts you in a situation where you got to save yourself, you have to get to a point where you know how to use the divine power. The divine power comes from your pineal gland. This is something that he established in our bodies when he first created us. There's literally a pineal gland, which is what they call the third eye in today's time. But it's the same principle. It's literally inside your body. Like it's a DNA type of level setup that he put here. Okay. And when you got a relationship with God, he gonna put you in seasons where you have to learn how to stimulate this. And the only way you really gonna get into it and really do what Christ was doing, you know what I mean? And really out here like healing. Oh, it's gonna lead me to another point. The only way you do that is you have to get into the disciplined habit of fasting. Okay, you gotta fast. Because there are some things in life that genuinely can't be done unless you fast. Christ literally said to his disciples, I think it might have been in Matthew or it might have been in Mark or Luke, I don't remember. But he said, when the disciples said, why couldn't we cast the demon out of this, the child who had been basically perplexed by these demons since he was a child. Okay. He had this stronghold for his whole entire life since he was a child, generational curse, basically. The only reason Christ said that they couldn't do it was because of their unbelief. And he said, howbeit, this spirit cometh not out but by prayer and fasting. which in his basically what he was saying was that there are some things in life that absolutely cannot be done or broken or changed or shifted unless you fast and mix prayer. Prayer is not passive prayer. Prayer is I decree, I declare, I command. So you mix fasting with the power of your tongue, mixed with the stimulation of your pineal gland. That's what you get when you got Christ that was out in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights fasting. Why you think Christ was so, he was glowing? He came back, he was healing people and all that stuff because he was fasting, he was meditating, stimulating his pineal gland and balancing himself out. That's why he was able to come and touch people and they felt virtue come off of his body because we are high frequency beings. That's why God tells us to wear certain fabrics and the way he made things, everything has a frequency to it. I'm not making none of it. If you can, bro, take everything I'm saying and go figure it out for yourself. I'm not making this up. I promise you I can back it all up with empirical data, evidence, all of this stuff. I never forget one of the seasons that God put me in for the first time. Man, this blew my mind. Man, I'm finna get the verse for y'all. I'm not making this up, man. I wish, oh my God. I've done this twice now. One time by physically laying my hands and using my words on my son, but one time just by using my words by itself. I'm finna show y'all this. Not making this up. If I'm lying, I'm dying. I'm not making this up. God made me do this. He made me do it to show me that it's really real. Because I didn't even know about this at the time. So the season I was in before where I'm at right now, like prior to where I'm currently in, like where I'm living at right now, prior to this, I had to do this in real time and I saw it happen. And then I just did it the other day and it happened to my son again. Crazy work. So Mark chapter 16, verse 17 and 18. Okay. Christ was talking about the different signs that follow people who get baptized in physical water, who genuinely believe water is for baptism of, or for remission of sins, the cleansing of your past life, right? I got baptized April 16th, 2022 on my first time keeping Passover because I really needed it. God showed me a dream that I won't get into that showed me I absolutely needed to get my slate clean because there's some sins that you just can't go and say sorry for. You got to actually get cleansed, okay? But Mark chapter 16, verse 17 through 18, it says, "And these tokens or these signs shall follow them that believe in my name. They shall cast out devils," which we just talked about. You can't do that unless you know how to use the power of your tongue and your divine power. You can't cast out devils and evil spirits and all of that stuff from you and your family and all of that unless you know how to fast, properly pray with authority, using the power of your tongue. You got real faith, meaning I know, not I believe, but I know, right? You got to mix all these things together, make a big old concoction in your body. That's what you got to do. So in my name, they shall cast out devils and they shall speak with new tongues. Not that, whatever they be saying in church and stuff like that. Tongues is speaking in different languages. That's what that is. You're speaking in different languages. They shall take away serpents, and if they shall drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. So no poison can hurt you. This is the key though, right here. This is why I brought this verse out. This is what I've seen in real time. It said, they shall lay their hands on the sick and they shall recover. Cannot make this up. I swear on everything, man. I wish God can put like a hologram to show y'all my memory so you can see it for yourself, man. I remember one time my son was sick like a dog. He would sleep at night. And I didn't know what to do, but I had already been fasting. So I literally, I felt my frequency was like very raised because I was fasting. I was meditating. I was in so much alignment that I literally was just like vibrating at a very high frequency level. My son would sleep at night. I was just up super late at night and he was sitting there real sick. And I needed him to be better so he can go to daycare for a moment, even though I don't like daycare because I needed to go make some money the next day. The Holy Spirit pricked me in my spirit and led me to open my Bible up and flip to this specific chapter and verse. I didn't even know this was here. I forgot it was even here. Yeah, I flipped until the Spirit told me to stop. So I stopped on it. I read it. I said, whoa. So I meditated and then I practiced what I had learned in the previous seasons. I set my intentions with the level of I know type of faith, not I believe, but I know. I spoke words of life I spoke death over the sickness, but I filled the gap with life over my son, while simultaneously putting my hand on his forehead and on his chest, his bare chest and his bare forehead. And I literally felt like the frequency started leaving, like from my chest down my arms onto my son. Very next day, he had just got sick that same day. Very next day, 100% healed, completely gone, completely gone. And when that happened, I was like, oh my God, blew my mind. But that was the first time I ever did that in my life. Second time, I ain't even put my hands on my son. This was recent. Matter of fact, he had been going through something. I cannot make this just happened like a few days ago. This was so crazy about it. This happened a few days ago. So my son had like conjunctivitis and stuff after being with his mom. I don't know where it, like how he got it, when it came and stuff like that. I just know he had it, and I had took him to the doctor. They had prescribed him some stuff for his eyes, and his eyes was cool after 5 days, but then it came back supposedly. Right? She had told me it came back. So when it came back, I literally had just came home. I sat down. I had meditated. I meditated to the point where my spirit was aligned. My frequency was coherent, like the two frequencies that make a sharp, straight laser. That's when my spirit operate, right? And then I just spoke the words. I was praying to God, but I prayed with authority. I decree, I declare, I command, I proclaim. This is what I was saying. And when I spoke it, very next day, because she told me she was going to take him back to the hospital that same night. But for some reason, I guess God moved her, which now looking at it, hindsight being 2020, I know why he did it now. That same night, me as my son's father, as the head, I covered my son with the divine power God gave me. Kid you not. She didn't take him to the hospital. The very next day, completely healed. Tell me I'm making this. How does that even happen? It's not even logical to like a regular person. It's literally not even logical, and you probably won't even understand this unless you got spiritual eyes to see. Paul said it best. I think it's in Corinthians. It says, to the natural man, they don't believe things, but to the spiritual person, they discern everything. They're able to see this. So if you a spiritual person, you really understand this type of, then you understand I'm not making this up. This is very real. And you probably won't even really grasp it and really understand it until God puts you in a situation where you got to do something very similar. I don't know what it's going to be, if it's the same or not. There was 2 times ever in my life so far that I have done that for my son. One time with me putting my hands on him, using my tongue. So I use the power of physical touch, because that's why you don't let just anybody come touch you, right? I use the power of physical touch and my words, but then I also see how powerful my words is by itself, because I wasn't even around my son just a few days ago. And I spoke this, and literally, he's back healed. I'm just like, dude. And when she told me that she didn't take him to the hospital, after I checked him, I said, did you take him? She said, no, he woke up this morning and all of a sudden it was completely gone. Like, come on. Come on now. It's because that's why I'm at a point now where I'm like, bro, I don't get anxious for nothing no more. I'm not anxious anymore, because God can put me in any situation now. And because of what I've learned, I know that now he's expecting me to save myself, but with his help. Not a situation where it's like, okay, he put you in a situation where, okay, you don't need God. No, you need God every step of the way. God is the one to give me ideas on what to do, what way to walk and stuff like that. But I'm supposed to take the things that I learned and put it into practice. That's what happens when you become mature. This is what happens when my son gets older than he is. He's going to get to a point where I'm going to start requiring him to pull his weight. He's going to start doing the things that I taught him. That's what it means, right? The Bible is written in 4 categories. No matter what you read in the Bible, it's categorized in 4 different ways. If you live these 4 different things out in your real life, and this is the last thing I'll say and I'll close it. If you live these 4 different things out in your real life, God will give you abundance of wisdom. It's like $1 million of different wisdom he'll give you. It's written in agricultural. So if you learn how to grow food and raise animals, you'll learn a lot. It's written in the sense of having children. So if you become a parent, you'll learn a lot, which is what this lesson basically is about, parenthood, right? If you get married, if God decides, for you to get married and whatnot, you'll learn a lot about that. And then it's written in the art of war. I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts for over a year when I lived in Texas. And I'm going to get back into it now that I'm here in a different season. But I learned a lot about that, about myself, a whole bunch of stuff, right? You walk down these 4 different pillars, I'm not making this up. God will give you an abundance of wisdom that you never even knew was out there. You will start to see the word in a whole different way. You will start to see this and you will understand it from the spirit of the law perspective. Like you will see everything from the metaphysical sense and the practical sense. You're gonna see it all. You know what I mean? And that's just the beauty of God. And so with that being said, I'm gonna close this out. One more thing I'll say, for everybody who watches this afterwards, I am going to start. I'm gonna make a unified Land of Goshen YouTube channel page and Odyssey channel page, so that way I can do future Bible lessons on our unified page, because it's not just gonna be me teaching. I'm gonna, let God continue to lead me on trusted people, you know what I mean, who God chooses to put on the stage as well too, to help feed the flock and whatnot. But the future videos I plan to have on the unified page, and I will make sure to, put that somewhere, like the link or something, somewhere for everybody to get access to. If you want or need and have a desire for community to grow your personal one-on-one relationship with God and his son, not their religious stuff, but a real genuine relationship, the type of stuff I'm talking about, right? I have a community that God told me to start. It's called the Land of Goshen. It's eventually going to turn into a real physical community. It's going to be located out of the country of America at some point in time. It's going to be a 100% self-sufficient community. Not everybody's going to be able to come inside the real community. The community that we have now is basically going to be like a vetting ground for certain people, right? But this is what God is eventually working me towards, okay? And everything he's going to have me do specifically, and people that come along with me and stuff, is basically geared towards putting us in a land of Goshen, so that when things hit the fan, his people that he specifically put his seal on is not going to have to suffer along with Babylon. Okay. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody who does tap into this video. If you like it, like it. If you want to share it with somebody, share it with somebody. If you want to save it, take notes, do whatever the Holy Spirit call you to do. Peace and blessings. And have a good one.